Good afternoon. My name is Gwen Litvak, and I lead the transportation policy work here at the Bay Area Council. I'm pleased to welcome you today to what will certainly be another great webinar in the Bay Area Council Impact Series. The Impact webinars feature top experts providing information, insights, and guidance on a range of topics from public health to federal and local policy to business continuity. Today, Danny Wan, Executive Director of the Port of Oakland and Bay Area Council Executive Committee member, will lead a conversation about economics, jobs, and infrastructure development at the port, which includes Oakland International Airport, the Oakland Seaport, and 20 miles of commercial waterfront open space. Danny, thank you for leading this webinar and for your work on our executive committee. Danny will be joined by Bryan Brandes, Maritime Director, Port of Oakland, Bryan Brandes, Aviation Director, Port of Oakland, David Harvey, Vice President of Southwest Business, Southwest Airlines, Delphine Prevost, Manager, Administration and Finance Services, Maritime Division at the Port of Oakland, and Susan Ransom, Client Relations Manager for SSA Marine. We will have time for question and answer at the end, so please submit questions using the Q&A box found at the bottom toolbar of your Zoom window. And with that, here's a bit more about the Port of Oakland.
"2020 was a year like no other. We navigated a global pandemic, followed new health guidelines, implemented cleaning protocols, and worked from home when possible to slow the spread of COVID-19. Our hearts go out to all those who suffered loss in this challenging time. The Grand Princess coronavirus outbreak in March of 2020 was a public health emergency. As everyone's port, we became part of the solution and served in our role as a first responder. Despite the challenges in 2020, determination and resilience prevailed. Restaurants at Jack London Square pivoted to outdoor dining, food to go, and food deliveries. We kept Oakland International Airport, essential infrastructure, open and operating. Although air travel declined during the pandemic, we added new destinations. And OAK became the first airport in the country to offer free COVID tests for employees and the traveling public. At the Seaport, we welcomed the largest vessel to call a U.S. port, the MSC Anna. Our maritime partners with the boom in e-commerce kept essential goods moving. Technology took on a larger role. Zoom became a household word and a common way for us to meet virtually. December 2020 ended with Jack London Square's first online tree lighting ceremony, to the delight of those who counted on us for a local celebration. January 2021 began with welcoming the delivery of the tallest cranes at Oakland and in the United States. These new cranes can handle the largest ships calling North America. Oakland will soon see its first port of call in 2021 with a ship carrying imports directly from China to Oakland. And the Center Point Warehouse is the first completed building in the port's Seaport Logistics Complex. These major changes offer new business opportunities and new jobs. At Oakland International Airport, we have a new airline joining our operations. And the airport is the first to offer COVID-19 test kits in vending machines for passengers. 2021 is the year for planning. We must look beyond the pandemic and prepare for what's ahead. We'll create an inclusive overall Seaport stakeholder group that will build upon established community engagement and include discussions about further development of the former Oakland Army base. We're exploring the possibility of a new passenger terminal at the airport, and we've initiated community conversations around the idea using virtual town hall meetings. We're working with the city to update its general plans and ensure the creation of an industrial sanctuary, which is vital to local and regional economic stability and jobs. As everyone's port, we invite you to join us on the journey in 2021 to plan for a brighter future.
Well, thank you for that introduction, and I hope everybody enjoyed the video. It is this sort of it's a very nice summary visually of what the Port of Oakland And it points out that the Port of Oakland runs not just the seaport, but also the Oakland International Airport, as well as 20 miles of commercial waterfront, including Jacqueline Square. We also oversee parks and open space. So that is why we call ourselves everyone's port. And not only that, in terms of economic contributions of the port to the Bay Area, the Port of Oakland powers about 84,000 jobs in Northern California region. And the port and our partners contribute nearly $700 million in state and local taxes. And the port's overall economic impact, according to the latest economic impact study, is more than $130 billion in terms of both the goods moved, passenger moved, and the FedEx and the UPS that deliver through our airport. Indeed, we are everyone's port. To bring it to a more personal example, I think things, as the video said, the airport operated throughout the pandemic. We didn't shut down, and so 98% of the time, the airport runs very smoothly, whether pandemic or not. However, anytime that 2% of the time when we have some glitches about delays or such, it makes the news because people depend on the airport to get to where they are for either travel or business, or even their goods through their next day delivery type of stuff. Same on the shipping side. Normally you see our cranes and you hear about you pass by the freeway 880, but you don't hear much about us until such time that all of a sudden the supply chain backs up, and we have now 20 ships lined up in the bay. Well, not 20. What's today's figure, Brian? About 13 or 12. So
14, yeah.
14. And the latest story I just saw in, I think, Sacramento, about a beer pub couldn't get their beer, German beer, on tap for 3 weeks. They ran out because the supply chain right now is experiencing a great deal of volume that's record breaking. And we are now trying to decongest the ports. But normally, that is why we impact a lot of people's lives and the economy. And today, I want to bring that to you as well, and joined very fortunately, by two of our biggest business partners. One is Southwest Airlines, and the other is SSA Terminals, which operates the terminal operation at the port that helps us load and unload approximately 70% of our volume at the seaport. And likewise, Southwest Airlines does about 70% of the passenger, 70 to 80% of our passenger load at the Oakland Airport. So those are incredible partners, and we're very happy to have them here. So without further ado, I'm just gonna turn it over to each of our panelists and have them do a little introduction about themselves and as well as their role in the economic fabric of the Bay Area, and particularly with the Port of Oakland. So I think we'll turn it over to, who's gonna go first? Let's see. Dave, Harvey, why don't you do first, Southwest Airlines?
Would love to. And Danny, good seeing you again. And thank you so much with the council, just the opportunity to spend a few minutes with you. As we think about the Bay and specifically the Port of Oakland, our mission at Southwest Airlines is really about connecting you to what's important in your lives. So we try to put ourselves in your shoes and think of all those relevant nonstop destinations from coast to coast that you need to get to, whether that's for leisure or for business purposes. And I did not plan this. I'm in Dallas. We're based out of Dallas, but we actually consider ourselves a California carrier. I actually brought my mug today. California strong. We've got such a rich history. We've been in Oakland for over 30 years now, and really designed the entire Bay, Oakland, San Jose, and San Francisco, in a very complementary way. But really, we look at Oakland as our anchor. And we saw that, pandemic was breathtaking, just the loss of demand and trying to manage through that. But we really looked at essential air service in California and specifically the Bay. And we kept a lot of those nonstop flights, even when nobody was flying on them, or just a few folks were getting to the front line to support first responders. but it was our lifeline to Hawaii Islands. That was a relatively new investment. And we have our largest portfolio of flying out of Oakland to the Hawaiian Islands. We continue to add more and more and more. We just recently announced Bellingham and Eugene. The Palm Springs service we just started last December is doing fabulous out of Oakland as well. And then just our commitment to the state of California also rounded out some gaps there in Central Cal, adding both Fresno and Santa Barbara. But when you think about the entire Bay, we've got over 3,000 employees. As you heard Danny say, we're moving 70 to 80% of the traffic in Oakland, over 50% San Jose. We've got a nice offering across the Bay there in San Francisco as well. But these are not just moving bodies in and out of the airport to your local community and to support the economy. It's parking, it's concessions. You got via traffic that's supporting the wait and landing. There's also a lot of freight and cargo that we move in the belly of our planes. And these 3,000 jobs, these are well-paying jobs, and these are employees that are deeply rooted in the community. We feel like we do our best work from a volunteerism and really connecting with the community. I can't say enough about our California frontline teams. So I'd say as an industry, the airline business, the last 60 days has been unbelievable. Just like it stopped, the faucet stopped very quickly last spring. Nobody could have predicted how fast it's ramping up as folks get their shot, they get the vaccination. They're not only planning one trip, they're planning 3 or 4 trips. So we hope they're thinking in Southwest, but we're thrilled about the partnership and we continue to see more growth in the Bay and also at Oakland specifically.
Great. Thank you, David. Next, I'd like to go to our other seaport partner, a very important seaport partner, Susan Ranson, who, by the way, I think runs the whole SSA operation.
Yeah, right.
This Oakland port. And certainly she's many times we depended on her to run, like I said, about 70% of the cargo through the seaport. So Susan provided some additional updates on SSA Marine Perspective and what you do.
Great. Thank you so much. And I really appreciate the opportunity to be on this panel. We are the largest port. I put a few thoughts together to share. We are the largest port tenant of the Port of Oakland with 290 acres of land, upwards of 70% of the maritime business between Matson and SSA. We employ approximately 400 longshoremen daily, which contributes to the 84,000 port jobs that are out in the industry. We also have about 23 steamship lines that call our terminal. We work 15 to 20 ships a week that turn at Howard Terminal, by the way, that's a later subject. Unload and load thousands of containers each day. We reach up to about 6,000 truck moves in and out of the terminal daily. We operate 5 berths at a time at 1.2 miles and have invested millions and millions of dollars into the largest cranes on the West Coast, infrastructure, and more importantly, environmental upgrades. We've definitely had a lot of challenges over the years. We've consolidated, merged, incurred protests, labor contracts. There's been a lot going on. We've put a lot of implementations in place to help with the congestion at the terminal, such as night gates, appointment systems, pre-arrival, import programs. So that has helped. Then COVID hit. The port was deemed essential, and with the help of the ILWU and the trucking community, we were able to continue to get the much needed medical supplies, household goods, grocery products, and all the other commodities out to the customers. Agricultural products and all their export commodities were still able to load the ships, which was great, going to countries that rely on that product. Additional labor has been added to the workforce, which is going to help with working the ships because there has been a backlog out there, but we're seeing the rock get chipped away out a little bit. As you can see, we are forever growing with a long future in the port business. And in fact, we just signed a long-term lease. On a quick note, I do want to mention somewhat Howard Terminal. I won't spend a lot of time on, obviously, this is not the call to do it, but we do have grave concerns about the Howard Terminal Oakland A's project and the long-term impacts that it will have on port business and everything interconnected to it. We're in such close proximity to Howard Terminal. We turn our ships at the basin. A lot of the concern is that we have these vessels that are like floating Empire State Buildings. And they are so big, and they're going to go down there and they're going to get to the basin. And all these little watercrafts are going to be in there. And what do the ships do? I mean, they can't stop, right? So either everybody scatters or, you know, we're not sure what the answer is to that. We're still waiting for that. One other thing that we're concerned about is obviously the noise, the lights from the vessels, the terminal, the trains. You know, port operations never stop. So what are we going to do to mitigate that? So we're just waiting on answers for things like that prior to the July 20th meeting. And on the last note, there's an economic impact study out there that examines the impact on port job, that says it examines the impact on port jobs, but it's more of a capacity report. So we do look forward to working with the Port of Oakland to conduct an actual EIS that will hopefully be completed prior to the decision that's coming up on July 20th. This is a very big deal, as industrial and commercial traditionally are not a good mix. And we certainly don't want to become another dried up port, because that would impact every single person on this call. So thank you very much. And I look forward to questions.
Well, thank you, Susan. And thank you for bringing up an important public policy discussion right now that's ongoing in the city of Oakland. And we have at Bay Area Council, I'm sure we focus on land use, we focus on economic development. That's very relevant. So thank you. Let's jump to our Maritime Seaport department. And we have Delphine Prevost, who is another person that we depend on to keep the port running, the seaport side. So Delphine, what's going on with the port that you want to seaport let people know?
Thanks, Danny. Good morning, everyone. So what Susan didn't mention about OICT is that in addition to being our largest marine terminal and handling about 60 to 70% of our cargo, they also generate about 45% of our core maritime business revenues. So we have many, many important tenants, but SSA Marine, SSA Terminals is definitely one of them. And we pay close attention to our marine terminals because they are the front lines of the port. Without them, we're not a port. So, so it's good to hear Susan's input this morning. So good morning. I've been at the Port of Oakland a long time, about 20 years, and I think it's fair to say this is probably one of the more interesting periods in our recent seaport history. COVID-19 has changed a lot of things for us, including our buying patterns, you know, as a community, as a region. So what we're seeing right now is the continuation of an import surge from all that buying that you guys are doing at your desks or on your phones with Amazon and whatnot. The top imports that are currently moving through the port, in case you're curious, are medical supplies, home furniture and appliances, home fitness and outdoor sports equipment, all the stuff you're buying, some of what I'm buying. So things are on an uptick for sure, right? This import surge. So what does that mean? So June, as of June 2021 is up about 11% relative to June of 2020. That's also true for year to date. So basically we're looking at 11% better than last year, and we're on track to hit an overall TEU record of 2.6 million. So this is all good news, but it hasn't been without its challenges, some of which have been alluded to, notably the fact that ships now have to wait before they can have a berth when they come to port. So that's why you're seeing a lot of ships out at anchor in the bay when you're driving over the bridge or standing at the beach in Alameda. And also some of the ships are waiting outside the Golden Gate, actually, because there's only so many spots that are available in the bay for the ships to anchor. So at the same time that we're having that issue, we're also seeing fewer vessels calling the port. Therefore, there's more cargo on each vessel call. And that trend started before the pandemic, but it has sort of exacerbated the congestion problem, if you will, particularly on the terminals. So in response to this, and as Susan alluded to, our labor partners at the ILW have been very important in addressing these issues, because they've added dock workers and are also training additional workers for skilled positions that are not only going to be able to handle the cargo we're seeing now, but also poise us for future growth, because we'd like to keep growing. Well, sort of it's a repetitive point, but I think worth making, that the labor component's really critical, because we do need to plan for the future, you know, long after this pandemic passes and as our economy rebounds. So it's important to note that we're both an import and an export port. We're about 50-50 actually, which is pretty unique. And our exports are also up about 9% year to date. And our top export commodities are pretty consistent, but they're generally dried fruits and nuts, citrus, grapes, wine, rice, and then various scrap materials like metals and plastic. Last but not least, I want to note that we're undertaking a significant planning effort this year for the seaport to make sure we are in a good place to accommodate the growth that's coming and to meet our environmental objectives. And key elements of that planning effort are going to include a land use study, a transportation study, and an electrical infrastructure study so that we can plan ahead for electrifying as much equipment as possible at the port so that air pollutant emissions continue to go down. With that, I'm going to turn it over to the rest of the panel. Thank you.
Thank you, Delphine. You mentioned our job workforce development component. Interesting enough, this morning I was just on a call in which Secretary of Transportation Buttigieg was hosting on the seaport industry, and the topic of our aging truck driver workforce came up. And there was a whole lot of discussion and angst about who is our next crop of truck drivers in our economy that we depend so heavily on. And so definitely the Port of Oakland is very much concerned about workforce development. We then go to the airport again. Bryan Brandes is our airport director. What's going on there, Bryant?
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Danny, and appreciate you all joining us today. I have been OAK's Director of Aviation for about 5.5 years now, and I've witnessed a big shift in our business during that time. Leading up to the pandemic, we were in a growth mode and approaching our 2007 record of 14.6 million passengers. We had made terminal improvements to Terminal 1, primarily with renovation expansion of our international arrivals building, and we had a lot more planned or underway in 2020 that included a really reimagined food and beverage program with a focus on local concepts. So the pandemic required us to take a pause button on most of those efforts. We worked with our Board of Port Commissioners to approve relief to many of our business partners as passenger activity plummeted. And I'm really proud of the way that my team, along with those of many of the port departments, rallied to come up with creative ways to reduce expenses while continuing to offer the most critical services to the community. Our revenues in the last fiscal year declined by 20% or about $40 million. But that impact was softened by our ability to reduce expenses as well. We are budgeting very conservatively for FY22. We are expecting to see passenger traffic of about 7.5 million. I'm happy to say that things are actually starting off even stronger than what we anticipated. So hopefully the revenues will be stronger as well. We're the Bay Area's primary air cargo center with about 55% of total cargo handled. FedEx operates an Asia Pacific hub here, and UPS also has a large presence. Air cargo activity remains strong and increased by about 15% in the second half of 2020 compared to 2019. We think that's primarily due, no surprise, to demand in e-commerce and more items being ordered directly through suppliers with home delivery selected. And through May of this year, air cargo activity is up 15% year over year. So today, when compared to last summer, much has changed and for the better. The airport is experiencing strong growth in passenger activity, seeing an average of 75 to 80% of its pre-pandemic traffic daily, which is the highest of any Bay Area airport. We welcome Frontier Airlines to our roster of carriers in February, serving Denver, Phoenix, and Las Vegas. After a nearly 3-year absence, Delta Airlines reinstated service to LAX, which operates 3 times daily. Allegiant added Bozeman service for the summer. Spirit, which had just introduced Orange County service at the start of the pandemic, resumed that service last month. And as Dave mentioned, Southwest added Palm Springs last fall, Santa Barbara in the spring, and will extend its nonstop routes from Oakland to Eugene next month and Bellingham in the fall. So also the incredibly important Hawaii market, as Dave mentioned, it's in very high demand with 10 daily departures offered by Southwest and Hawaiian. And our partner, City Health Urgent Care, has been offering COVID testing on site since October when Hawaii service resumed. Many of the projects that we were excited to unveil in 2020 have resumed for 2021 or 2022 completion, and our eye is laser focused on planning for the future in order to meet the needs of what we fully believe will be a far stronger demand ahead as the Bay Area, especially the East Bay, continues to grow in both population and businesses relocating or expanding here. We're incredibly excited about the future. We appreciate your support. Thanks again for joining us today.
Thank you, Bryant. And so now we had these brief introductions from our panelists. And now we're going to move into a moderated set of questions to each of the panelists. And then after, I want to remind everybody watching that after that, we are going to open up to everybody's questions in the people who are in the audience watching. And so please, if you have a question, please click on the button at the bottom of your screen that says Q&A and place your question in there so that we can be sure to get to your questions that you may have of our panelists. But let's get back to David Harvey for a sec. And this is the same question I'm going to ask for Susan as well. What is your view, Southwest view on the importance of Oakland in terms of services you offer and the Greater Bay Area region? What's your plan? What is your exciting services you think that how Southwest is going to offer to the Bay Area, but also as your partner in the economy here?
Yeah, a couple quick highlights I'd mention. We spend a lot of time looking at zip codes and IP addresses and where customers are coming from and to. And Bryant kind of hinted at this as a complete aside. The partnership with Bryant and his leadership team has just been phenomenal. We worked with him before Oakland, and it just kind of continued that relationship. So we've got definitely a strategic partnership there. But if you look at where the population continues to migrate, it is the East Bay. And then when you couple that, Southwest, we're a high tempo, high utilization of assets operation. We like to turn our planes quickly. And to be very candid, it's a cleaner operation out of Oakland than across the Bay. So when you put, where are the people trying to get to and from, and then you couple that with the operational strengths, it really just makes a great recipe for Southwest and Oakland to continue to grow together.
Well, thank you, David. Susan, how the stuff that you move through, that you move through your terminal, how do you view that in terms of the contribution and relationship with the Oakland and the Greater Bay Area?
So, as mentioned previously, we are the first link in a chain. So all the goods are on the ships, they come to the terminal, we load and unload them and make the product available. I mean, it's the economy really. Once it outgates, it's going through the trucking companies, and then the trucking companies are taking it to the customers. During the pandemic, medical supplies were key and essential, and we made sure that the masks and all the PPE equipment were getting out to the trucking community so that they could bring it to the hospitals and where they needed to go. So just moving goods is essential all over the world. It's a global thing. So we feel in Oakland that there's a lot of growth here. I always go out when I'm talking and say it's the hidden gem. So right now with Long Beach being so saturated, we're very bullish on Oakland and continuing to grow the volume here. We have the best labor force and the most productive labor force in Oakland. So we see a lot of potential here and appreciate the opportunity to work with everybody in the industry to make sure that the goods are getting where they need to go.
Well, thank you, Susan. Bryan Brandes, our Maritime Director. Susan just sort of gave the perspective from her as a terminal operator. But from your perspective as the director of the whole port operation, tell us a little bit what else is involved in the port operation and how does that contribute to, what kind of other operations and jobs operate at the seaport, and how does that contribute to the future growth in the region?
Yeah, thanks, Danny. Good morning, everybody. There's thousands of jobs that are tied into the supply chain with the Port of Oakland. It really starts with the pilots and the tugs, who bring in these large vessels into the harbor, and then, as Susan mentioned, the women and the men of the ILWU load and unload the vessels. There's mechanics on site, keeping all the equipment in good order. Then the truckers who are definitely arguably have one of the toughest jobs, transport the cargo throughout the region to the warehouses, to where the warehouses are transloading the cargo into domestic containers to its final destination. And then in the reverse order, the same thing happens, for the exports. This is all, tying together to make sure that, we have everything on the shelves, or at a few keystrokes away from all the stuff that we want to buy. And then it really ensures that all of our exporters are able to move their products. So we're really looking for this increased growth in all of these job categories, but then we're really looking at a couple of new categories, and that really includes, the clean equipment technology as we transfer, our current, diesel equipment into clean burning, either, hydrogen or electric equipment. And then we're also looking at, bringing on new jobs into the digital technical infrastructure. So really trying to, improve the port community and port communications within the, within the Oakland, within the Oakland Seaport, and then those who use the seaport. So as Susan mentioned, we do think it's a jewel. Oakland is a jewel, and we are definitely looking for increased growth in current jobs and in the new opportunities I mentioned.
Thank you, Brian. Skipping back to the airport, the airport, Brian Brandes, our airport director, as you mentioned, where it's not just about passengers, we're also about cargo movement packages that move through UPS. In fact, we are the biggest air cargo airport in the Bay Area. Just describe a little bit to me, similar to what our Seaport director just did. Why do you see the role of the Oakland Airport in terms of our economy in the Bay Area region, and the kind of services that we offer to both business and leisure travelers, as well as our daily lives?
Thanks, Danny. Appreciate that question. Hopefully everyone can hear me a little bit better now. Great. So yes, we are very busy when it comes to air cargo, and that is a vital service that is offered for both business as well as our everyday lives at home. FedEx has been a partner of ours for decades now and has a very large operation here, as well as UPS. And between the ability for them to transport items from coast to coast or even internationally overnight, pretty much on demand, that's very important when we need to have products that we need right away, very quickly. So that's very timely that they're able to offer those services. And then on the other side, there's also the general aviation or corporate side of the business that we have. In our North Field, we have 2 business partners that provide those services to the corporate and general aviation community, Signature Flight Support, and then also Kaiser Air. So those are very important partners also. And then here in the South Field at the terminal facility, with our airline partners, and then the corresponding business with the rental car operators and others, for the domestic and international passenger traffic, that's very critical also. Southwest has been a partner for 32 years and flying to destinations all across the U.S. We also have Volaris that serves multiple locations in Mexico. And so, just the ability of the airport to provide the passenger service to both visitors and residents, both domestic and international, it's something that we are very proud of, and we're happy to be able to provide those services with those business partners. And we think that as time goes on, as the Bay Area continues to be a very important center for business as well as for people to live, the air travel demand is going to increase, and we believe that we will play a larger role in meeting the needs of air travel for those residents and visitors in the future.
We've been hearing a lot, Brian, so I'll stay on branch, I'll stay on you. We've been hearing a lot about things like sort of like Uber-like air flights, or sort of Cadillac's personalized flight services. And also, so another questions I get often is, when's the Oakland Airport going to offer more international service? So just tell us a little bit about sort of the types of sort of services that we can expect for the future of Oakland Airport?
Sure. So I think that we're always very hard at work behind the scenes to improve and expand the services that we can offer to the community, to the traveling public. And so I believe that we have had a larger role in the international realm when it comes to passenger traffic. We had a carrier that served us for over 5 years, Norwegian Air flying to up to 7 European markets. So we have a lot of data that was collected over that time, and that demonstrates that if given the opportunity, that passengers, both locals as well as those residing in other countries, will choose to fly into or out of OAK. So we're going to be using that to make the case to other carriers that may be interested in operating similar service to Oakland, whether it be to Europe, to Asia, to South America, Central America, Canada, on and on. So I do believe that we're going to have an opportunity to play a larger role in that part of the business, and certainly on the domestic front as well. I think that with Southwest in the future, they intend to enter into agreements with other airlines, and those will be primarily foreign flag carriers, I expect. And if those carriers would like to have a presence in the Bay Area, I would think that they will look to provide service to the airport where Southwest has the largest presence, and that will be OAK. So we certainly want to do what we can to work with Southwest in those endeavors so that we can increase our international footprint in the future.
All right, so let's jump to David. Is that true?
Yeah,
We're going to get international flights out of Southwest?
Well, I can. That's a perfect lead in. I can talk to that, Danny. We've actually served Mexico nonstop, and as we kind of continue in the recovery and more of these international destinations come online, that'll be an opportunity for us as well, nonstop out of Oakland. That is predominantly taking Americans to go lie on a beach to Cabo or Cancun or Puerto Vallarta. We do have, as Bryant noted, not only the ability to partner with foreign flag carriers, what's known as code-sharing and interlining. I would actually say another thing on our kind of midterm roadmap is some capabilities to allow us kind of foreign point of sale, foreign currency, foreign language, which would also make Canada a viable option out of Oakland. And then to Bryant's point, once we can partner, just as an example, with Asian carriers, that'll make it more attractive with our large network out of Oakland for them to fly nonstop into Oakland, hook up with Southwest, and then we can carry that traffic beyond. So if you kind of dream over the next 5 to 10 years, there's a lot of upside there in all those various business opportunities.
Great, thank you. So we are with the Bay Area Council, which is a very prestigious group of business leaders in the Bay Area community. And we certainly have tried to influence policy and also planning aspects. Very big on transportation, as Gwen is heading that up. So I want to ask you, what can the Bay Area business community do to support your business? And to the extent that how can we be helpful to you in terms of creating the jobs that you mentioned, and also to make sure that we have an efficient operation in the Bay Area? Susan, I'm going to turn this over to you as your first answer. And I know that you have been involved in the whole discussion about the Howard Terminal, but beyond that, how can the business community support SSA and the marine terminal operators?
So I feel like they should continue doing what they're doing. We appreciate all the hard work that they do. Supporting the port activity and contacting council members about, the Oakland A's, asking questions, let's get some answers. The whole idea is for businesses to stay in Oakland, be comfortable with Oakland and growing Oakland. So whatever the business council can do to ensure their customers, all their contacts are, if they have any questions, they can certainly come to me or the terminal. We'd be happy to answer them, and just to keep going.
Well, one of the initiatives I think that the city of Oakland is undertaking next year is the general plan for the city. And that has to do with both transportation, business planning, And one of the aspects of talking about it is a concept of being an industrial sanctuary in the city of Oakland to set aside buffers and land for industrial uses. Is that something that you think the business community ought to be paying attention to carefully?
Absolutely. I'm not sure of the circle, but we've got the turning basin that we're looking at, obviously, to increase 10 acres there. We have these larger ships coming in. I'm an Oakland resident as well, so I not only work in Oakland, but I live in Oakland. So whatever growth opportunity there is in Oakland is much appreciated. I just think there's a bright future here and a lot of new businesses and industry, and industrial is good, and there's a lot of growth for it. So we look forward to it.
Yes, thank you. David, same question to you. How can the business community in the Bay Area help you, Southwest Airlines, grow not only in Oakland, but also in the Bay Area region?
Yeah, it's a great question. I don't want to sound like too much of a commercial here. I think the major thing that the business leaders can do is really just educate each other and educate your teams about the great service offering out of Oakland. Southwest has invested a ton there. The airlines are not healthy yet in the pandemic. Things are moving in the right direction, but there's a long road ahead, and we've got to start repairing balance sheets because we've burned billions and billions of dollars. I think we're all creatures of habit, and I'm not pitting San Francisco or SFO against Oak, but there are still so many people in the Bay that have been doing things, creature of habit, and driving across the bridge and driving right by Oakland. I mean, the thing is just fascinating. I can get to downtown San Francisco faster out of Oakland on the BART than I can from SFO to downtown San Francisco. So the population's moving that way. The service offering that Southwest is providing out of Oakland is phenomenal. And just folks being educated on the services that are there and then taking the ridership. Success breeds more success, allows our network planners to put that next flight in there and continuing to grow together. But we've got to get the ridership for it all to work.
Thank you, David. That's a little segue. We have about 3 minutes for this panel questioning. So back to Bryant, you heard that we hope to grow. So what are some of the plans to sort of accommodate this? We anticipate growth at the Oakland Airport, and in about a minute and a half, just describe to us what you're thinking about expansion plans and such. Bryan Brandes.
Sure, Danny, thank you. So we are very much in the business of trying to enhance customer experience. And so there are several projects that we are putting back on the front burner this year and looking to complete either this or next year. So we're very much looking forward to offering a better product, if you will, to all of our customers in the near term. But looking further ahead, we are really focused on what I think is the most important effort, and that is the environmental program for the potential future terminal modernization and development project. So it's the necessary process that encompasses both state and federal components. It's likely to take a couple of years for us to complete, but what it will do is inform on our ability to enhance our terminal facilities to meet future demand. With more than 50% of the Bay Area's population residing closer to OAK than the other Bay Area airports, and the pace of residential construction continuing unabated, we think that there'll be a much greater opportunity for an expectation, quite frankly, to serve the air travel needs of both residents and visitors, both domestic and international. So following completion of the environmental process, critical decisions will be made with respect to what will be built, how or whether it will be phased, and other important components. So we are very much looking forward to that. It will be really in three parts. It will be a modernization of the existing facilities. It'll be a replacement of certain existing facilities that need to be replaced. And then there will be an expansion and adding a certain number of gates for additional flights to be accommodated. So those are the three components. And we're hoping to have those components underway sometime late this decade.
Just do me a favor, Bryant. We want to keep our airport convenient, right? Jump in and out, get on the plane, get out. And I guess we I actually find our 60s feel a little charming, but we might lose that. So, Terminal 1. But thank you, Brian. Brian, what about Seaport? What are our plans, long-term future? Are we continuing to grow our cargo, or what are we doing there?
Yes, we are definitely continuing to grow. This year we have as Delphine mentioned, we have a planning study underway. Can you hear me? Because
Yes, we can.
okay. Yes, we have a planning study underway, which is really going to, to really guide us to our future growth. And we're going to be, looking to grow both in container operations as well as non-container operations. And really, this planning effort is really going to take a look at, both inside the port complex, which is comprised of about 1,300 acres, and it's really going to kind of take a look outside the port complex as well, within the region, to help kind of define if, as long as the Port of Oakland is growing, what else in the region is needed to complement Oakland's growth. So that we all can, all of us consumers, we all can have, the things that we need to buy, sourced or locally to us. Because again, shipping is the most both economical and environmentally friendly way to move cargo throughout the world.
Thank you. We hope that people will participate in our planning process. Gwen, I'm going to turn it to you to ask any audience questions.
Thanks, Danny. Let's take this question from Eric Mathis. The aging, and Danny, I'll kick it to you, and then others feel free to add in as well. The aging retiring driver problem is a concern. What efforts are the port looking to encourage getting more and/or younger folks behind the wheel?
All right. So this is a sort of a question that I said we were addressing with Secretary Buttigieg this morning, and it is certainly partly into the supply chain, but as well as to really a workforce development. And this is an issue for the Port of Oakland very dear to our heart, which is that we have a responsibility to make sure that we have a workforce development program, not only for the future of the maritime industry, but also to make sure that the local jobs, local workforce is trained to do these types of jobs in logistics, in trucking, in terms of warehousing. I don't know, Bryan Brandes, Susan, do you have any views on that question?
I think you answered it well. I mean, we're working with the local workforce development, and we really need to expand that program to bring on, both local and regional, guys out of high school, out of college, and really promote the industry. Somebody mentioned earlier that on another call, it's not the sexiest industry that everyone wants to get into right now, but it can be, and it provides a lot of opportunity for both truck driving and warehouse positions.
And Susan, these jobs are pretty good paying, right?
They're great paying.
Yes, they are great paying jobs. One of the things that we promote here at SSA, as you know, we have worked with the Port of Oakland on, working with the job community on potential jobs at SSA. One of the things that, Cal Maritime, I've taken tours around with groups of high schoolers, to get them interested in the industry. So we're really excited about expanding and educating people on port business, because I think it's really important for future growth as we all retire.
And we do at the port have a social responsibility department that is very much coordinating workforce development. Again, these are good paying middle-class jobs that we all emphasize that we need in the economy. So thank you, Gwen, for that question.
Thank you. Our next question, I just had it here, is from Satinder Mali, and this is for David. Are you adding direct service from Oakland to Washington, D.C. or New York anytime soon?
We actually have nonstop service to the DC area right now as we speak. It's called Baltimore, Washington, BWI. And that service does great for us. You do have to take the train or the car down into the district if that's where you're trying to get to. DCA, so National, has a perimeter rule where Oakland is outside of that. It's about 1,500 nautical miles. So nothing, call it west of the Rockies, can fly nonstop. The other alternative is in Northern Virginia. It's in Dulles. We do continue to look at an opportunity to fly Oakland to Dulles. We've tried it pre-pandemic. So that would be another alternative. So that's for DC. Right now, our primary airport in New York is LaGuardia, and it also has a perimeter rule. So we are a little bit limited. We continue to look at things like JFK and Newark as alternatives, but nothing in the immediate term.
Thank you.
Thanks. I've flown your BWI service. It's great. We have a great question from Liz Ames. By 2045, US freight shipments are expected to increase by more than 40%. How can we continue to make rail improvements in collaboration with Union Pacific and Capital Corridor to increase capacity for both freight and rail passengers? Bryan, I think maybe that starts with you. Is that right?
Sure, that's yes. So that's a great question, and that complements our growth strategies and our planning efforts. And really, what needs to be done is we have over the past 10 years invested millions of dollars into the rail infrastructure, and there's a few components that are still need to be completed really to allow much larger trains to enter into the area and to be worked. So we have those on our planning horizon to allow larger trains to come in to be worked, and then also in conjunction with whether or not future development happens at the current Howard Stadium, as we're looking at in a variety of safety improvements throughout the Jack London area as it relates to the rail, just to ensure that as we grow and bring in more and more rail cargo, that it ensures that it's safe and compatible with the users of Jack London Square.
Thanks. I hear that train going by.
Yep.
Just to follow
good
up.
timing, huh?
Yeah. Just to follow up, I'll ask you, and then others can chime in as well if they've seen it. There seem to be a couple questions around the drought. Have you seen a change in exports coming in or in what's being shipped?
Not yet. We have not seen a drop in the export commodities from the droughts. What we are hearing is that there may be power concerns with the drought. So some of the reservoirs are not at capacity. So some of the water generating sources for power are not at full capacity. So that is where we have a concern. Is the power use of the port.
Thanks.
I want to chat that too. So expand on that. Strangely enough, it's not the commodity side that we're hearing. Maybe Susan had thoughts on that, but it is. We've been warned that because California is running out of water to generate hydropower, which, as you know, is one of the renewable energies that we depend on to supply electricity. And as we try to electrify our infrastructure, it's a big concern that this summer we're projecting that the water hydro energy will run out. And that the big debate and big question now is not only is it enough power to supply us, but there's price peaks. And we talk about the rise in the commodity of lumber these days. The electricity pricing is going to go up predictably about 3 to 4-fold in terms of peak energy pricing. And so not only is it just a supply problem, but a pricing problem as we try to depend more on electricity. I don't know, Susan, do you have any thoughts on commodity impacts, or do you see any?
So no, right now, actually, our exports are really high. We have not seen a drop yet. Thank God for our night gates. As Delphine said, we're a 50-50 terminal with imports and exports, and exports on the night side have been very high. We're seeing a lot of refrigerated exports. So I think it's a little early to tell what the downline effects are of the drought. We'll probably know more in September, October, when refrigerated goods and other goods are moving pretty steadily. So we would probably have more information at the end of the year. But for right now, exports are high.
Thank you. Our next question is, in addition to labor increases, how much can we automate in the short term to alleviate backlog pending any federal infrastructure funding? And are longer term studies being conducted, I assume, on automation?
Susan, you want to take that one?
So automation has been looked at through a couple of studies, especially with the Howard terminal. They're pushing strongly for automation, obviously. That's not something we're looking to do in Oakland. You know, you could pretty much automate anything, but at what cost? Who pays for it? You know, we have Union Local 10. The productivity, non-automation is much higher than automated cranes. So that is not something that we're looking to in our future. We use automation more at the gate. What can we do to get the truckers in and out quicker? You know, we've got pre-gate, we've got appointment systems. So we are doing things that are automated, but as far as making 100% automated terminals, such as in Long Beach, we don't see that in our near future at all, because we have to move the ships, and the productivity with our current labor force is wonderful.
Yeah, if I can just add, I mean, really the trend there and the push will be to automate data exchange. So, you know, versus, you know, automating the actual manual, you know, movement of equipment.
That makes sense. I guess a follow-on question about the physical infrastructure of the port as well. Land use wise, does the port see its future, or where does the port see its future when it comes to public shoreline access and visitor amenities as you contend with expanding successful port operations?
Yeah, we have a great jewel of a park, Middle Harbor Shoreline Park, that is undergoing you know, a new planning effort as well right now, kind of a revitalization of the park. It has you know, I look at it as great bones. It needs a little bit of a facelift. It has you know, over the years with back to the drought, it has had some, you know, we've turned off some of the, you know, the sprinklers, so it's you know, the area has not it doesn't look as good as it did. So we have a team, you know, reevaluating you know, the amenities it should offer. We've had some stakeholder engagement to see really what stakeholders are looking for to have there, and so we hope to have that plan done in the next few months, and then we would start construction to really invest into some long-term sustainable plants that don't need as much water, and then also adding some amenities.
Right. So I just also add, I think it's a little known fact that we have a great cooperation effort with the Bay Area Regional Park District that at the airport side as well. Brian knows this. Right by the airport is the marshlands and the parks and the Martin Luther King shoreline access. Those are all Port of Oakland lands that we cooperate with the Park District to operate.
Great. Brian, do you have anything else to add to that, or?
No,
okay.
I'm good. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank all of you. And just to follow along about the physical infrastructure of the port, has thought been given to depressing the main rail line between the UP Yard and Fallon Street as part of the waterfront development?
I think depressing, I'm not sure what the question means.
Yeah, depressing, I assume you mean lowering.
Oh, you mean the grade separation?
Yeah, the grade separation.
Okay. Yes, there is a great deal of thought about how the grades separate. Not sure if it's an underground separation or overhead separation, but certainly when we talk about rail safety, you know, talking about water access, we have great water access at Jacqueline Square and all those areas there. That's also Port of Oakland, and that's where the commercial access is. So the Howard Terminal, if it happens, will enhance that, but the grade separation is certainly one of those things that we're going to have to think about seriously about implementing.
Thanks. We're almost at time, so thanks everyone so much for your questions. Danny, any closing thoughts before we sign out?
No, just thank you very much to Bay Area Council and everybody who attended. And you heard from our also with our partner Southwest and SSA. We are a job generating engine. We're providing services to both passenger travelers and cargo and all the goods you consume and use. So support us and we'll support you.
Thank you so much. Thank you everyone for joining and listening, and thank you to our panelists. It was great to be here.
Thank you very much.